Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Joe and Ishtar's podcast. Today, we're going to have a conversation about who we put on our pedestals and what happens when we do that. So welcome to Joe, who's joining us today. And
Hi there.
this conversation started when I was doing a little meeting with someone, with one of our students, who had put their guru on a pedestal. And of course, their guru fell off the pedestal, as has happened quite a bit in the last decade. And that story was really there. There was a lot of anger. There was a lot of resentment. There was, well, I don't want to do this work anymore, which was powerful work, but the guru proved to be very human and got into trouble. And we've heard lots of stories of gurus getting into trouble in the last decade. But in saying that, it's also about putting people on pedestals and putting them above us and thinking that, having all these expectations that they're these super powerful, superhuman people. And of course, what happens is a lot of disappointment happens at the end of it when we do that. And so I just wanted to have a conversation with Joe about that. So, Joe, how do you feel about that? Have you ever done that?
Multiple times in my earlier, earlier naivety, when I look back to sort of the energy that I was holding,
Mm.
when it is that I went and put people on a pedestal. You were one of them in the very early days. Um, Paul Check has been another one in the very early days. Um, I think even growing up as a daughter to a father, there's this beautiful relationship, and often we put our dads on a pedestal as somebody that we look up to. I remember feeling very much like he was my hero through my teens, my go-to for that wiser guidance and direction. And then, of course, we start to experience where it is that perhaps unconsciously we've attached our expectations onto these people without even having a conversation with them about those expectations. And slowly but surely, for whatever reason, so that we can learn, those expectations aren't met. They do something that disappoints you, or they all of a sudden behave in a certain way that surprises you outside of the box you've put them in. Um, so yeah, I've absolutely had those experiences, and they've taught me a lot. They've really taught me about my connection to myself and how important that is, because that's what you're foregoing when you go and put other people on a pedestal and make them your go-to
Yeah.
for that clarity or guidance or direction.
Yeah.
So
That's
that,
so true. Yeah.
that would sort of be my first thought. I'm curious though, who have you ever put on your pedestal?
I put lots of people on my pedestal. I put my dad on my pedestal until when I was about 11, my parents got divorced and dad disappeared for a few years. So he sort of fell off the pedestal because he was my sort of strong person, always there, and I always emulated him. And then that fell over. My mum, who was an extremely strong woman, and she was on my pedestal, and I always struggled for a long time to live up to her, trying to reach that pedestal or she was my aspiration, and I never quite reached that aspiration. And then teachers as I went through school, of course, and then friends. I had a few friends who I tried to emulate because they were on the pedestal, how amazing they were, and they were on the pedestal. I put spiritual teachers on the pedestal, and thought they were wonderful. So, all of those things. And the thing is, it's almost like this pedestal's really high and you're trying to climb the ladder to get to that. And they are aspirational. But as soon as they do something that's remotely human in some way or doesn't meet your expectations, there's a lot of anger that comes up because here you are spending all this time and energy trying to emulate
Mm.
them or, trying to meet that, whatever whatever you put them to. And of course, when they do something that's not in the box, as you said, then you get really upset and very disappointed. And I think the other thing to remember is that, you know, we often put our partners on pedestals as well, especially when we fall in love in those first few years when it's all fairy tale and lovely and all of that, and we put them on a pedestal, and of course they're going to fall off that pedestal at some stage, and then we get very angry, and that causes a lot of divorce in our society because we don't give people a second chance really to you know, and we, you know, oh well, they don't meet my expectations, I'm out of here. And so it's a great excuse when somebody doesn't meet your expectations to go somewhere else. And so, you know, that's what happens. And the thing is, we need to put ourselves on that pedestal. We need to put ourselves there. And the reason we don't is because we invariably have lack of self-worth. You know, I've had a friend who used to tell me that she found it really hard to talk to her spiritual teacher, even though she'd worked with her for years and years and years, and she was always terrified of having a conversation with her because she didn't think she was worthy of having a conversation with her. And so, you know, that sort of thing is very sad, firstly, but it's also saying that you don't feel you're good enough. I'm not good enough. That person's so much better than me. So you're constantly comparing yourself to someone else. And often what you're doing is you're comparing your whole path, your whole life, if you will, to what they're doing, thinking you should emulate what they're doing. And while you're doing that, you're never doing what you're supposed to be doing. And so you're constantly distracted by all these people on pedestals that you think, oh, how wonderful they are, you know. And
how that creates, you know, how all of that, you know, really creates a distraction from our own purpose, our own mission, creates a distraction from our own gifts because they don't get honored because you're too busy honoring someone else's gifts to see or honor your own. You know, and that, you know, that judgment you were talking about before, when we do put others on a pedestal, because we feel like, you know, we're not worthy for whatever reason, whatever story that is, you know, all of those judgments that we're holding towards ourselves. And there's also this unconscious energy that we might not even be aware of, where, you know, the moment we put somebody up there, you know, we call it the pedestal, and we're looking up to them for something. The moment we do that, we have to be less than.
That's right.
In order for them to be more than.
Yes, exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
In whatever that context is. And I find that that's a really great opportunity to, once you're aware of that, it's a great opportunity to go and sit with that energy that's sitting in the less than, that's causing you to put that person to be more than, and to go and sit and be curious about that energy within you.
Yeah.
And really ask, is it really true? Is that really true?
And the thing is, you know, I think that this, my feeling about this is that this is really deeply embedded in our human psyche, this whole thing of putting someone above us all the time. And it comes not just from Christian religion, it comes from the old temple system where everything was hierarchical and we always had someone above us that we had to live up to. And then, you know, the high priest was the one that actually connected with God. And so that came out of the Egyptian temple systems, Isis temple systems, the high priestess or the high priest. It always had to be somebody else. We couldn't directly do it. It had to come through someone else. And then, of course, the Catholic and the Christian religion took that on, you know, that it had to be the somewhere else. The Jewish religion does the same thing. So we could never connect directly. We were never good enough. So we always had to put somebody above us all the time. And it's a very deeply embedded thing, which is one of the reasons why, you know, the whole, you know, 15 minutes of fame has become so important for so many of us, because we're chasing that desire to be on the pedestal, to, you know, really, you know, we look at all these famous people and think they're so much better than us, or wealthy people, you know, all the wealthy, you know, tech people and all that. We think they're so much better than us because they're wealthy, not really understanding that, you know, they're actually here to master how to deal with money and wealth. and and that's what they're here to do. But and then that's why they're accumulating money, because that's their focus in this lifetime. So it's such an interesting thing that this is so embedded in us, that we always are looking for someone to put above us because we think life is hierarchical. And I learned this with the masters a long time ago, that it's not hierarchical at all. It's circular. It's everything's on a works in a circular way. We're all equal. We're all connected in that one way. No one's above another. Everyone has gifts and we're all different, but that doesn't make us less or more. It just makes us different. And that's something we really don't really understand in our society at the moment. We keep thinking we have to be more instead of different. So we're not honoring our differences. We're just seeking the more all the time. More, more, more. We have to be more. And there's a huge pressure we place on ourselves and on others to be more, which is why we get so disappointed when somebody falls off their pedestal and doesn't live up to our expectations.
And it's amazing how that more mirrors itself, because the need to be more translates into I need to have more.
Yes, that's exactly right.
I have to have more to mirror that I am more.
Yes.
And so then we become these, accumulators of materialistic stuff. And coming back to what you mentioned before about, those that are here with a particular lesson to learn about materialism, about money, about how they co-create with that tool. What I also find so interesting is in majority of cases where those that have, excess of really what they need, the lesson that they're really also having there, and that at some point they're faced with that no amount of that money or things or materialism is ever going to fulfill what they're truly looking for and what they're truly seeking. I mean, how many times do we, know and meet those that, have it all, and yet there's a void that they still haven't fulfilled. And of course, we know it's this deep connection with themselves that they're seeking, but they're so far down the rabbit hole of accumulation and looking for it outside of themselves that often they're not ready to even perhaps to make that connection or to have that realization.
Right. Yeah.
And I find that really fascinating to watch and observe.
And it's very true what you're saying, because and it's about power as well, that ability to control others, and they're trying to fill that void with money and power to control other people. And we often give them permission to do that, because we think that if they're able to have all this money and control people like that, then they must be powerful beings, and therefore we need to aspire to that, or we need to put them on a pedestal. And and eventually they will fall off that pedestal, as they have done through history, and we've all gotten upset and angry with them for doing that. But in truth, we're the ones that have put them there and given them permission to be there, whoever they are, whether it just be someone, I can remember in my working days in my career, I would put people who were more successful than me, or who owned, big businesses, and I would always feel less. I would feel small when I was meeting with them, and because I thought that they were more important or better than me because of where they were, not understanding that that wasn't the case at all. But that was my little self being small and not being, thinking I had to be more all the time. And that's what happens. But I also take your point about wanting that more, and look at our society, our whole economy that we have in our society in the Western world particularly, but also in third world countries, revolves around consumerism, which of course is at the root of all our environmental issues, how we're destroying the planet. And so, that need to have more to fill us and to bring it all around us is actually, it's all about that. It's all talking to that need of having more all the time, and never seeing ourselves as being the truth of who we are, and that we're enough as we are, and we're not less at all. And we're destroying the whole planet based on that, because we can't connect with our spirit, with our divine truth. That what we're really looking for is this connection, as you said. And you know, it's there for all of us if we look for it.
What would you, for those that are listening and they're still listening to us right now, and they're contemplating the conversation and the perspective that we're offering, what perhaps, whether they're tips or tools or suggestions, that we can invite people to self-inquire within themselves, because the other thing that you've just said, when we do what we do about putting people on a pedestal, and we're small, and what happens is we miss out on actually sharing our gifts. We miss out on sharing our perspective, sharing, because we're so judging, oh, well, that's probably not really going to make a difference, or, oh, that suggestion that I have, or that idea that I have, oh, it's probably not going to be good enough. Oh, they'll probably think that's silly. And so we're self-sabotaging ourselves to actually be able to step into sharing our potential and our gifts out of this fear of being rejected, because we think that we're not going to measure up. So we're losing all this opportunity of, going to another potential. So what sort of things can we offer?
Well, I think what we need to do is we need to come into self-acceptance and self-love, and that's, I'm not talking about self-care, although that's important. I'm talking about acceptance of who we are. And really we need, if we can't do it for ourselves, we need to find someone who can help us to show them the way. And I mean, one of the things I say, and it's our courses do that. Everything we teach does that, because it really honors who you are and helps you to honor who you are. And that's a journey. It's not something you can do overnight. And it's not just going out and getting a couple of, massages or, whatever, or getting your hair done. It really is coming into the acceptance of your truth. And so, that often requires a mentor or someone to show you the way. So find someone who has done it, and not put them on a pedestal, but just help them, to ask them to mentor you, to show you the way so you can do it for yourself. And find someone who's willing not to take your power away, but is willing to show you, not put themselves on a pedestal, but simply to show you the way and help you to do it for yourself. And that's the most important thing you can do.
And challenge you compassionately.
Yes, and challenge you, and asking you to reach that potential, not their potential, but your potential. And I think that's really important, and to do that honestly and with love and with guidance. So that's important.
Beautiful. Thank you. Well, as always, we hope that what we've shared will spark a seed of either curiosity within you, or support you in some way, no matter where you are right now on your path. Thank you.
Thank you. Blessings, everyone. Blessings.